everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Big Little Lessons. I'm Christine, and I'm here with my longtime teaching partner, Jenny, as we explore different topics that are relevant to people of all ages. Whether you're 5, 105, and ultimately discover that through our years of experience teaching kindergarten, there's a big little lesson to be learned.
So let's recap our last episode, Finding Joy in the Midst of Chaos. We met with our first guest, James Calvert, a longtime actor, 17 plus years substitute teacher, as well as being a world traveler. So Christine and I reflected, what were the big little lessons that he taught us? And we picked out a few of them.
There's some good ones.
To find a way to say yes, even when you don't want to. Pay attention and to notice what's happening around you. In other words, read the room. And the final lesson that we learned is when all else fails, read a story and put on music. It can change the mood of the room from chaos to joy.
I love that. So true.
So today we're going to reflect on one of the biggest pivots of our teaching careers.
Pivots.
How we went from in-person teaching to managing tiny Zoom squares. Can you believe it's been 5 years? 5-year anniversary. So here we are. So we're going to share what we learned, what surprised us, and how it shaped us as educators and people. And ultimately, what we learned from it.
Focusing on the positives.
Yes.
That came from
the suffering.
That time that, we still have trauma from. So we dove into a season that changed everything, right? The day we left our classrooms, I remember it like it was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And we entered into this world that we knew nothing about, remote teaching. So we thought at the beginning that it would just be a few weeks, remember?
Oh, yeah.
And it turned into months and even years, right? And we had to learn to teach little ones through a screen. I mean, come on. And
we're so against screens.
We're so against screens. And we had to do it with creativity. We had to really think out of the box with flexibility and a lot of grace.
Beyond grace. So this episode is all about how we work to stay connected and lots of big little lessons that we learned along the way.
We really did. So how about Jenny, let's start by setting the scene. Because
Start at the very beginning,
the scene. Imagine, listeners, that there's thunder and lightning and pouring down rain.
Yeah.
And not only that, it was Friday the 13th.
I know. It was very ominous because we were at school and we thought it was a typical, it was just, first of all, Southern California, we don't get that much rain.
We don't.
We had endless amounts of rain, it seemed to be at that time. And it was like we're together, but we knew something was shifting. And it was about late morning, wasn't it? We get this email, school will be closed effective immediately. Like, we're going to finish school today and we're not coming back to school. We had 2 weeks before spring break. So,
and we had, of course, everyone was watching the news and seeing it happen throughout the world, not thinking, I don't know why, that it was ever going to really happen to you. No?
I know. Because we've never lived through a pandemic before.
We had not.
I'd never really digested the Spanish flu of 1918 because I didn't live then. And, I just thought, that was so long ago. We would never have that happen to us again. So it was hard to process.
Right. So what I remember was the day ended, we said goodbye to our students.
Well, backing up.
Go ahead.
We just started thinking, if we're going to be closed next week, because they said they were going to shut it down.
Oh, we had to prepare something to give them.
Yes. So we thought, okay, we have basically 10 school days. We can do this. So we started madly copying packets for them, ripping out pages from the math book.
That's right.
And just like, let's give them things to take home because we were trying to get ahead of it.
That's right.
So we used our associates and we were madly scrambling, trying to get packets put together for the kids to take home.
That's right. So we sent them off with materials, right?
Yeah. We were kind of just throwing things together.
And also what you said, Jenny, like we literally, so this was March 13th. In 8 more school days, it would have been spring break. And
yeah, that's right. Not even 10 days.
Yeah, not even 10 days.
Yeah.
And we thought, this is going to be great. We're just going to figure this out for 8 days, and then we'll be back after spring break.
Well, we hadn't even done Zoom before. So I thought, we're going to send these packets off. Off you go. And and we weren't going to have to do anymore until
Spring break starts early. Maybe that's what we thought.
I was so naive. And then we'd get these emails. Since we're not in school today, let's meet on Zoom. And I'm like, what the heck is Zoom? And we'd never been on Zoom.
Terrifying.
So, follow this link and we'll see you on Zoom. So that was our introduction to new technology.
It was. And there's so much more that went along with that. But honestly, Jenny and I were in our late 50s, and this was all new to us.
We're in our late 50s now. We were in our
mid 50s. We were in our mid 50s.
Look at me. I'm hanging on to my 50s.
But it was still so daunting because we're not, look, we have learned and have grown a lot through, with technology, but we're not techies. I would not call us techies.
No, we kind of fight against it.
Right.
And so we were like, oh, we don't need that because we believe in kindergarten things should be hands-on,
right,
in person, not
face-to-face, not on a screen.
Yeah, our lessons are not generally paper pencil workbooks.
Right.
It's not like open your workbook to page 27. We don't teach that way. We do hands-on cooking. We do math games. So it's not like we had to quickly think about how could we do hands-on at home. And that was much more challenging than we thought.
So let's go back to that moment. We're sitting in the lounge, just, listening to the rain, not really accepting that this was the reality of the situation.
Well, the kids had gone home for the day.
So and I almost feel like it was dark. Like it was so eerie. It really was.
And they told us you can't come back to campus. That's what made it even harder. So then all of a sudden we're like,
what do we need?
What do we need? And I didn't have a document camera that would work well at home. I didn't have all these tools that we ended up adopting.
Right.
But it was like, well, what am I supposed to bring home? So I brought maybe 24 picture books.
Right. Picture books, some chart paper, I don't even know.
Of course, Post-it notes.
Post-its. Jenny loves Post-its.
I'm sure we threw in some dice. I don't know. We just kind of like, we're throwing things.
We were grabbing.
Because they said the campus was going to be closed and we couldn't come back.
Yep. Yeah, books were definitely high priority. I know we grabbed many books. And then what happened? Like we started having to meet them on Zoom after that.
That was, I think we finished up. I think it was the day that we went home. The next morning, we got an email from our administrator saying at, say, 10 a.m., meet us on this Zoom, follow this link.
Okay.
And so just being at home, not being in a faculty lounge, not being in each other's classrooms, automatically you felt secluded and alone in this journey. Even though if you could pick up the phone and talk to somebody or text somebody, it just felt you were just navigating all of this new stuff alone at home. And of course, it was still raining. So I just remember it rained and rained and rained. So
it was. And so then fast forward to
Well,
that.
let me ask you this, Christine. What was going on through your mind as you packed up?
I feel very much like I was in denial, thinking that this was not going to. I really wasn't thinking about what was in front of me. I really wasn't. I had like you said, we had never experienced anything like this before. But you know what I felt good about? I knew that you and I were going to be in this together. And we had other people that were supporting us.
Yes.
We had associate teachers. The school really helped us by giving us even more teachers ultimately to help us navigate Zoom through breakout rooms because we also had a lot of kids that year.
Mm-hmm.
This was actually before it. This was actually before that.
So I know for me, as I was packing up, all I could think of is just get to spring break. That's all I could think about.
Right.
So it was 8-9 days, and then we were on spring break. Our spring break is the last week of March, the first week of April. I thought for sure this will blow over by then. The media is making it bigger than it needs to be. And I just thought there's no way
exactly
that we're not coming back here after spring break.
Yeah.
I just never imagined that it would go on the way it did. So I just was focused on the next day and get to spring break. That's all I could think about.
Yep, you're right. I was getting a little bit ahead of myself. So definitely that's true. We were sort of just, learning how to do things in the moment.
In the moment. And so I think the reality set in when we had our first couple of Zoom meetings, and it was kind of fun at first. It felt very Brady Bunch-like, with all the squares and, one voice at a time. But listening to follow this link, check this out, Google this, YouTube that, I was like, but we're only going to be out for 8 days. So why are you asking us to do more? And I had a surge of emotions, which we're going to get into about regulating or navigating big feelings soon. But I was just like, but it was just 8 days until spring break. Again, I could only think what was in front of me. I couldn't see a bigger picture.
Right.
But that soon came to
crashing down on us.
It presented itself when we saw an email to the parent community that the teachers have decided to forego their spring break in order to learn new technology to be prepared for when your students come back from spring break online.
Lucky us.
And my eyes were so wide. And I when I get very overwhelmed, the tops of my ears start to almost feel hot to the touch, and they kind of ring.
I know that about you.
And I was like, why are my ears burning? And I was like, oh no, we're coming back. We're going to learn all through spring break, and then we're going to be online with our students. And what does that look like? And so I remember to this day, it was 37 school days left till the end of the school year. And then I'm like, okay, thank goodness we don't have to start teaching kindergarten remotely. For sure it'll be over by summertime.
That's what we thought. And I remember trying to maintain a positive attitude. I feel like that's sort of like my go-to. Like, we're gonna get through this. It's gonna be okay. We got this. We'll divide and conquer. And I mean, that's really what we did.
Well, you really helped me. So thank you, Christine, because I was just thinking, how are we going to do this? And I really appreciate it because you really came alongside me. And I really feel like we were good friends to begin with, but that just cemented things.
Oh, this took us to a whole new level.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, because we had been friends for years and years and years. And this was like, I felt like you were my right arm.
Yes.
Like, I could have not made it without you.
Yeah.
We literally did our teaching, and here's the other thing about what happened was it just became a part of your life that was not a job. It was your whole day and your whole night and your whole just thinking, dreaming, sleeping.
It had a life of its own, just because we could go on and on about the negative. Believe me, I could. But I also think now in hindsight, looking back 5 years now that it's been, can you think about what was going on with your home life, your personal life with your family? Was there some moments that helped you kind of navigate this year of online teaching?
It's funny because I have 5 children between my husband and I, and we actually moved in May of 2020. Moved in May of 2020. And before that, I do remember some very funny moments. I lived in an apartment, and which was crowded. I lived with my 2 boys, and he lived in a separate apartment with his kids. And at one point, part of my ceiling fell in.
Oh, lovely.
And do you remember that? It was after spring break, and it was getting hot, and I had to Zoom from my bathroom.
I do remember. You were like, well, this is my new office.
So, it's hilarious.
Yes.
It wasn't even stressful at that point. It was like, okay, guys, this is where, Miss Annunziata, it looks really different where you're teaching today. Yeah, I'm teaching in my bathroom.
I think you were teaching a math game too. You even made a YouTube video, math bowling or something, and you just went with it. And it really made it much more joyful when it could have been, you could have had a really different mindset, but you just decided to go with it. Like, it is what it is.
Right. So once we figured out what we needed to do. So what we needed to do once we realized this was not ending was we learned how to be the best linkers of videos that we could be. I mean, I'm so proud of us and for what we did. We decided that we would start the day on Zoom, right? And we would have the kids say goodbye, watch these videos that we created, and then meet us back again for more teaching.
And we even set up individual conferences.
And then we would break off into small groups, which, what are those rooms
this
called?
was the breakout rooms.
Breakout rooms.
Yes, we didn't have as much of the breakout rooms in the spring of 2020.
We were just doing one-on-ones.
A lot of one-on-ones.
Trying to figure out what kids needed.
What they needed and to follow through. I'm just reflecting on what was going on in my home life during the spring of 2020. I had started an online master's program.
My goodness. What timing?
The timing was just glorious. I'd had a couple of my classes, one class at a time. So I did the bulk of my online master's during remote teaching. And I was also the language arts curriculum coordinator. So I was juggling a lot of things. The ironic thing is my master's was in mental health and wellness with an emphasis in family dynamics. So I learned a lot.
You could have taught that.
But it was one of the things that I took away. So my youngest daughter was finishing up college at University of Oregon, and she came home and began a new job. And our older daughter was living at home as well. And then my husband also had to work from home. So the four of us were all working from home. And during the day, we would barely even acknowledge each other. Dave was upstairs. The girls were in their room. I was down in the kitchen. And we would all do our own jobs. And then about 5 o'clock, we would all try to take a moment, it ended up being 2 hours. And we would come together, have dinner, and talk for 2 hours. And then we'd all go back to work. And at the time, I just needed in-person human connection with somebody. But I look back now on that, now that the girls are off doing their own things, I don't see them as much. That's what a gift that was. So
I agree. And I remember once we did move, and it was later that spring, and it was in May, it was so nice to have all 5 kids at home.
Yeah.
Right? I loved it. And we cooked and we ate and we had so many great conversations, and just having this experience together was so unique. But not that I would want to have it again, but it was really, I did find a lot of comfort and like just joy knowing that they were there with me.
I mean, it's kind of a big little lesson.
Yeah.
Was when the world news, which everybody in the world was affected by it, we found a way to connect with our families in a deeper way. I mean, for you and your husband's families to blend together and to move into the house that you're in, well, sort of, because you've moved again, but that you joined the two families during a pandemic and started a life in your house.
And everyone was happy to be together. Everyone was happy to be together.
What a lesson learned.
Yeah, it was very, very special.
Yeah.
Everyone was missing their lives, but I think there was so much gratitude that we could all be together. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, there was some joy in the uncertainty, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, during the summer of 2020, we had the pleasure of not taking a break. We got to work all summer preparing for our worst nightmare, which was we just kept saying all spring of 2020, oh, thank goodness we didn't have to start kindergarten with remote teaching. And then it was probably May before the school year ended of 2020 that we realized, oh no, we're going to start teaching kindergarten online, and how are we going to build this community?
Right.
And that's how we started our Zoom meetings.
That's right.
So do you want to talk about that?
You mean with the
individual families?
Individual families. Yes. So we thought, okay, 2 things, 2 words that have stayed with me since, and probably the 2 biggest little lessons are, the concept of joy and the concept of connection. We want these children, they're starting kindergarten on a computer. How is this going to be fun for them? How are we going to create fun, memorable moments where, forget about learning to read. I mean, it's a miracle that they did, and they actually did.
Yes.
So what we thought was, we're going to meet with each family individually and talk about it.
Well, we always wanted to do
home visits.
We thought, we'd learn so much, because in the beginning in kindergarten, we felt like private investigators. people don't always share because they don't know us, and it takes time to build a relationship. But we always thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun to have home visits and get to know the families before the first day of school? But logistically, living in Los Angeles, the families come from all over the area, and just to drive to people's homes, park, you're not going to have a 15-minute visit. They're going to show you the house and the kids and
Right.
It would be at least an hour visit. And that would take a lot of time. And so when we got really comfortable with Zoom, we thought we get to have home visits via Zoom.
Right. So this is something positive. Another positive
it really
that
was
came.
positive.
I think a lot of people will talk about that, how Zoom has changed their life, right?
Yeah.
In a positive way. That's how we started. We met with families. We wanted families, everybody was in a state of panic to some extent. And we wanted them to feel, see our faces.
Yes.
And see our smiles, just start to feel comfortable with what was in front of us. And we were really transparent and honest about how we were working in partnership with them. And this was a journey, and we were figuring it out as we went, right? So I never felt like the families were thinking these teachers are not doing enough.
I know. We were working around the clock.
Right.
And as well as they were. I mean, we were really fortunate. Our families,
they were so supportive.
Really kind. I have to say they were grateful. They were honest with their feelings. I saw lots of tears. There was families with 3-4 kids, and it was a lot. And trying to navigate all the devices and the managing, and most of these parents are working. So they're trying to maintain their work alongside their child. And of course they love their children and they want the best for them.
Right.
So they were gracious. We thank you for that.
And it was so, those are some of the fun moments too. Like, so imagine, you have to go to work and you put your 5-year-old in their bedroom with with the computer, and okay, you have to learn now, and you have to listen and
stay on that screen.
Stay on the screen, and you can't be distracted by your toys, and you have to get out of bed, and you have to stop eating your breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of really entertaining moments too.
I just remember seeing everybody's missing teeth and lots of feet. And
there's a lot of feet.
A lot of dogs, cats, rabbits,
stuffies.
Stuffies. So
still in their pajamas.
Oh yes.
Yeah, but that was also the beauty of it being kindergarten. Like anything really was acceptable and okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was really different than maybe teaching older kids, that the expectation was different. So I loved that we could just lean into that. We didn't have to say, oh, come on now, knock it off.
I think one of the things that we both feel so much gratitude is our administrators supported us with getting us extra support for the fall of kindergarten.
Right. That's what it was.
And so childcare employees, there was no childcare because everyone was at home. And so fortunately, they found places to have them help in various classrooms, including kindergarten. And so we decided to have smaller breakout rooms, because to have a full class, in fact, the Zoom technology back then didn't even fit all of us on one screen. And so that was a problem right away.
That's right.
So I think they could fit maybe 20 people, but
we each had 26.
We had 26
plus the
kids,
teachers,
plus 2 teachers, and then we had additional support. So what we decided was, like, how can we take this group, a big group, and of course one voice at a time, which is so impossible because they all discovered how to talk on it and just
unmute themselves.
Yes, right. Mute, please. So anyway, we were fortunate that we were able to have a whole group lesson, break into smaller breakout rooms of 4 or 5 students with a teacher.
Right.
And that really helped. And then we'd come back together.
Right. But it really, it really was a 3-ring circus, because we were starting off the day. It was a 3-ring circus that eventually we figured out a rhythm to. I don't know how. But then once we figured out a rhythm, guess what? It was time to pivot.
Gosh. So we had just gotten into a groove. So we started school. So we met with the families before school even started, and then we started online teaching. The students got used to our routine, and then we get an email. And all those emails were like 9 font. They were so tiny and just listed with information. And they announced, well, according to the CDC, the variant, even though none of us had been vaccinated yet, the vaccination was not available.
That's right.
We can bring 10% of our school population back on campus. And we've decided we want the youngest members of a K through 12 school to come back to campus starting in 3 days. So we're going to do this on Tuesdays and Thursdays starting next week. So get ready. And it's like, wait, what?
Yes. I mean, honestly, that's a whole separate podcast.
Yes.
Because going back after being online was a whole different experience, right?
It was. And yet, I mean, we learned some valuable lessons, it was actually really exciting to see the kids in person. And we're all masked up. And I remember that first day you had your gloves on, you had your mask.
I had like a shield. I had gloves. I have a photo of myself, and it's just, you cannot make it up.
The parents had to drop the kids off. They could not get out of their car. They had to test. Remember they put the temperature on to see if they had a temperature.
To take their temperature.
And then some kids' families didn't feel comfortable coming back in. So we had an online teacher. So we had to prepare lessons for the online teacher to meet with those children. And then we met in smaller pods. So we had 26 kids, but we could only have a room of 13.
Right. So we had them in half. So there was 4 different groups. And then we got that going. And then guess what? We had to go back again.
Yeah, there was a variant. So everyone back home. So we went back home. And then they said, well, now we can come back 3 days a week. I'm like, what? So we went from 2 days to 3 days. It was like, it was just start, take 2 steps back. It was just lots of starts and stops and readjust. But we have to say, what we started to do, they allowed the teachers to come back on campus. This was another big lesson. And you and I much preferred having our school life at school and having a change of scenery and not having online teaching at home.
Right.
And there was a handful of teachers that preferred to be on campus.
And we could be together, which was really nice.
It was so nice. We'd have lunch outside, 6 feet apart. And then we discovered, the campus was so empty.
We were the only ones there.
And so then we would meet with our teacher friends at noon every day, and we'd walk the campus and just having fresh air, walking side by side. I mean, we got in a little bit of trouble because we weren't 6 feet apart. I remember that. I'm like, really? I mean, we're wearing our mask. How much more do we need?
Exactly.
But, I look back on that now, 5 years later, and say, what a gift that was.
That was really special. Being able to be together in that way was really a lifesaver, I think, for all of us.
Well, don't you think everybody learned to live outside? Yeah. We were all just a bunch of squirrels. It's like, what? Let's eat outside. Doesn't matter what the weather. We're going to be together outside and not inside. So until we're clear and free from vaccinations. I mean, that just feels so long ago.
It feels so long ago.
I know.
It's true.
I know.
Wow.
So you want to talk about a little bit, what were some of the things, the creative strategies we had when we were...
The highlight.
The highlights, the good things.
The highlights. Some really funny stories. I was always so impressed, as I had mentioned, with the students being alone on the computer, like what they could actually do and how much they could navigate. Like they were way better on it than we were. And sometimes you would see a student just staring at the screen and, they looked as though they were really, really listening. And I remember this little boy, Charlie, and as I asked, Charlie, what are you doing? Are you listening? He said, no, I'm doing research. I said, what are you researching? He said, the honey badger. Hold on. I'll send you a link in the chat box.
That's unbelievable.
And I was like, he's a genius.
Yeah, I had a Charlie as well, and his mom told on him, but he was playing online chess. Here, I'm giving the lesson of my life.
Exactly.
Putting so much thought into it, and I was. But he was playing online chess. But he taught us, remember those Zoom features where you could add mustaches?
Oh,
and eyebrows?
Right.
So this Charlie, he taught everybody how to do that. And so we'd hold off and say, okay, everybody, let's not do those features. And then we'd have a designated time. Right. And it was so fun to see.
I think that was also a real opportunity for students who felt comfortable to really shine their gifts.
Yes.
I remember I had one student who was in Montana and it was snowing and they were on a nature walk and we were having a lesson and And this little boy was like, "Look what I found." And it was like elk horns or something.
Fun.
And so, you really just leaned into that because it was really exciting. I had another little student who we were all on Zoom having a lesson. In the middle of the lesson, she holds up a live lobster and says, "This is what I'm having for dinner tonight."
I love it.
All the other students were like, "What? What? A lobster? I don't understand. Like, is that your pet? You're eating it?" And the next day she came back. She's like, "It didn't end well for the lobster." And but it was so, you could like, those were moments that you can have in the classroom easily, but we were able to have them on Zoom. We really were, and it felt joyful. It definitely, I mean, we allowed kind of so much of that, it felt really, really good for everybody.
Yes. So we would have our lessons, but when students had something of interest, like I had a student that was traveling and we sent work for her to do on her own, but she had an opportunity on this island to release baby sea turtles. I mean, how many times in your life can you go release sea turtles? So she was able to share that with the group, and we were all, kindergartners. And I think, to be honest, we all love it. We're like, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible. And how was it?" And share with us. And so we had those kind of moments of just like, teachers like to call them teachable moments.
Right. We were able to travel with people and see into their, homes and see all the things that they wanted to share. I also remember, one of the things I always love to do in my classroom is I dress up a lot.
Yes.
I love wigs. I wear a lot of wigs. Jenny knows that. So, we did that on Zoom too. I would like duck down and pop up, and I would transform into Super Reader. And, of course that gets their attention for, and parents just think I'm out of my mind.
Well, do you remember when we would have our Fun Fridays? And part of Fun Fridays, we had a former faculty member who's a gifted pianist. And he would come in because I had a piano in my room.
That's right.
And he would play the piano and we would dance, and we were dancing fools. I mean, we just thought, why not? Let's have a fun time.
Right.
And it was like a release for all of us.
Right.
So kind of back to what James talked about.
I was just thinking that.
Right.
Yeah.
Those lessons he left with us without us even realizing, like, let's turn on some music because it can really change any day into a great day. So
no, and I think as often as we could, we had to lighten it up.
Yes.
We really had to. We didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I think of our job versus, everybody said it was such a hard job to be on Zoom with small children, but any job would be hard to do on Zoom at the beginning. Now it's different, but the beginning, it was just hard for everyone.
Well, the big lesson for that is, when you have to learn new routines, new creative ways, certainly lots of technology, it's a little painful not a little, it's very painful at the time because you're going to hit roadblocks, you're going to mess up. And so, that was just a lesson in learning how to lean in. I mean, if I'm being really honest, there were just days that I would just cry. In fact, because I was in my master's program, the papers that I had to write every single week were due on Wednesday. And so I'd study all weekend reading these journals, and then I'd be writing my paper. And Tuesdays, I called them Tearful Tuesdays because Mondays, it's the beginning of the week. Everybody knows it's hard the first day going back into work. But Tuesdays, it's like, it's still the beginning of the week, but it's just like compounding. You're like, oh my gosh, it's still the beginning of the week. And then I had papers due on Wednesday. And so I called it Tearful Tuesday.
I know. You coined that phrase because we brought it back.
Right? Tearful Tuesdays is just, and I think one of the lessons I learned is that it's okay to cry. It's okay to maybe release some of your frustration with your close colleagues and friends and family members, and then pick up your bootstraps and then keep marching forward. Like, just, okay, take a moment, breathe, reflect, move on. And that's, Tearful Tuesday is real. And we got through
real.
It, right?
It's real. Definitely real.
So let's think about some of our reflection and growth.
How did this experience shift our view of teaching? We didn't have any other view other than the view that we knew, right? Mm-hmm. So it gave us a whole new way of thinking, right?
Yes. And we learned stuff. Whenever you're with somebody going through the same thing, everyone kind of views and processes information a little bit differently. So working with different teachers, like you and I working side by side versus in different classrooms, we learned from each other. Oh, that's a good technique.
Right.
So, I mean, that was learning new teaching techniques. Learning from one another was really good.
Yeah, I think we really. Do you also remember at one point we asked when we were learning to do iMovie, and
Oh, yes.
we asked the art teacher to help us, and we had a Zoom session with
Yes.
her, and she sort of guided us through. So we really did rely on one another, and being able to teach this way was better than no teaching at all. I mean, we could have never just said, "Sorry, school's closed." I mean, that would have been impossible.
Right. And not only learning from other teachers, but learning from parents, learning from our friends. You know, everyone was helping each other out. So leaning in and saying, I need help.
Yeah,
Those are hard questions. We want our kindergartners to do that. And those little kiddos taught us, like, I'm stuck. Oh, yeah, I need help.
Yeah.
And ask for help.
I remember sometimes parents would say, Charlie's having a rough morning. And, I would break out into a room with Charlie and just say, it's okay, Charlie, just be with us. You don't have to do anything. Just be with us. Just listen. And giving everybody the grace that they needed throughout that time.
Yes. I mean, I felt like this remote learning definitely deepened our connection with our kids and our families.
Oh, so much. So now these kiddos are going into 5th grade. Can you believe that? And I did feel like after they left kindergarten, we were so connected. Like when we came back to campus and they moved on to 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, like these children were so special to us, and these families were so special to us. And, the connection we had with the families, and how they came back and said, I'm miss seeing you in my kitchen every day.
No, I mean, the parents, and that was kind of nerve-wracking for us as teachers, is the parents were listening to us as well. And yet they were able to mirror that language that we were using from our reading, writing, math lessons, as well as social and emotional learning. They were taking in the language we were using, they were using at home as well. So it was such a cool little partnership.
It was. I'm proud of that.
I know. It was so great. So let's see. What's one thing you're proud of from that time? You said you're proud.
Well, I'm definitely proud of the connections we made. I think I'm proud of so many things. I'm really, really proud that we were able to find joy throughout this really challenging time. I'm proud that children learned anything. Yes. I mean, it was a miracle that they learned. I mean, can you imagine entering kindergarten on Zoom? I mean, I just still can't believe that happened. Yeah, I'm proud of the relationships that we formed with the families, despite not seeing them in person. I'm proud of how they trusted us.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
So many things.
I know. I'm thinking about what part of this remote learning season that stays with us.
Well, definitely Zoom, right?
Oh, yeah. Zoom's here to stay. Yeah. And I find it so helpful when I need to hop on with a parent, say middle of the day. We can chat by phone, of course, or text. But it's really nice if, say, a parent is traveling or they work far away. It would take 45 minutes to drive to campus and then difficult to find parking. We can hop on a Zoom call and get our information conveyed to one another in 10, 15 minutes.
Have options. Right? Think about how the mental health industry has changed.
Oh, yes.
From, people being able to have all their therapies online. And
it's wonderful.
So, I mean, Zoom, I think that is definitely a positive takeaway from probably the world.
Right? I agree. So we love it. So thank you, COVID. Kidding.
Okay. So Jenny, what would you say the big little lessons? What did we learn from this? Let's go back to why we're here. What are the big little lessons that we got from this very challenging time?
Yes. Well, there's no lessons like learning from little people. And, we've always said kindergartners are so wise and so open and flexible compared to how we get as we get older. And I would say one of the biggest lessons I learned from teaching these little kiddos is that they knew how to celebrate the little things. And so things like having special dress-up days and having dance parties.
Yep.
I mean, it was just so much fun to break up some of the academic lessons with celebrating big things. I remember one time when we sent home, we asked everyone to take a sheet of aluminum foil.
That's right.
And make something out of it and then share, this is not aluminum foil. This is a dog dish or this is a bow tie. And they just, anything went, right? And so with like big people, when you think about the little things, we had parties like there might be a game night over Zoom or drive-by birthday parties. You remember that? We'd say hello to somebody and just get in a carpool line.
Cocktail hour over Zoom.
Oh, yes.
I did that.
I did too. Multiple.
So yeah, learning from the little ones that you can find joy in the things that, might not seem joyful.
Right. They just had fun. So
also, one of the things we talked about is these little ones never even had preschool. So being brave.
Yeah.
They were so brave.
Yeah.
In what was in front of them. They didn't have a choice, but they could have not engaged in the way that they engaged.
And then especially when we came back to campus, there were so many protocols. So one of the things that we love to have is our families come in and see the classroom and the kids are walked in by their parents. But they didn't get that opportunity. When we went back to campus starting part-time in the fall of 2020, they had to be dropped off in carpool line and just walk in. We met them out on the green top or black top, the just pickup area. And we had to walk them back to their classroom 6 feet apart. And so they had to get out of the car by themselves wearing a mask. And they were they really were ready to come back to campus, and their parents were too. So kudos to those parents because they really were like, nope, it's time to get back into real person. And we just found that the kids were so thrilled to come back to campus.
Yeah.
So.
Well, parents were thrilled too.
Oh my gosh, the parents, they were like, get out.
Poor parent. They all deserved trophies. And like another big little lesson is in life, we all have to do things we don't want to do.
Yes.
Right. So understanding that you get to and you have to make it work.
Yeah, right. And so we all do it. I don't want to cook dinner. You get to. You don't want to get up early and go to work. You get to. So yes, we all have to learn how to get to. So
wow.
Mm-hmm.
So on this 5-year anniversary of teaching through Zoom to kindergartners, let's reflect on what we've learned. Resilience is a huge word.
Yeah.
And it's so important to know that's in all of us.
Yes.
And we can really access it when we need to.
Yeah. And learning how to pivot, even though I don't really like that word pivot because it brings back just having to turn on a dime, but yet we've learned how to pivot in much more meaningful ways. So
let's never say that again.
Okay.
So thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Big Little Lessons.
Yep.
And so until next time, stay curious and creative. And what else? Keep noticing the little things.
Well, I just want to conclude by a book that I'm reading, which ironically it's called The Pivot Year by Brianna Wiest, I believe. It's so good. And I wanted to read it because I think it's really important for us as we're navigating life as it is today in 2025. So she writes on page 145, you either live at the edge of your curiosity or from the backseat of your doubt. Neither are perfectly comfortable, but one is far more worthwhile. Hey, I need to sit with that one for a while because we're going to have, in our whole life, we're going to have situations where we're going to have to pivot. We're going to have resilience. So we learned some lessons 5 years ago and we continue to learn them all the time. But just keep noticing these little things and keep growing. So until next time.
See you soon.